5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
I'm so glad you're joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on Justice for Young Dolph. The murder of the Memphis hip-hop artist in November of 2021 stunned his city and his fans. It was hard to understand because he was loved by so many for his genuine commitment to his community. Ultimately, that love helped authorities quickly capture his accused killers. 36-year-old Adolph Thornton Jr., better known as hip-hop artist Young Dolph, was much more than a famous local rapper. In Memphis, he was a relatable success story, motivating school kids and supporting local businesses. He was buying a treat for his grandmother at Makita's homemade butter cookies when he was shot and killed on November 17th, 2021.
I think we have to understand that Young Dolph was supporting the community. You know, he lived it, he breathed it, he talked it, he walked it. He really was out there.
Dolph's finances were on the upswing in a big way. His Paper Route Empire record label was shaping up to be an influential powerhouse. He handpicked the artists and mentored them to make them millionaires. Brick Wolfpack is one of them.
We're devastated. We never would have thought anything like this could happen, you know. We're just grieving on him. Everybody's devastated, you know. We're just trying to pick up his legacy where he left it and just make sure it lives on forever.
Less than 2 months after his death, 23-year-old Justin Johnson and 32-year-old Cornelia Smith were charged with his murder. A third man was also arrested. They were on the run until U.S. Marshals launched a nationwide manhunt. A $15,000 reward got the streets talking, and more than 500 tips flooded in, leading to their capture.
When we look at incidents such as the death of Young Dolph, we had these tips come in, and they were essential in capturing the suspects who have currently been charged.
People in the community have to stand up and have to make it clear that this is no longer cool. You know, whoever helped those guys that killed Dolph get away and stuff, nah, man, we can't be about that.
Brick Wolfpack says Young Dolph changed his life forever.
To show other people, you know, y'all could do it. We're all coming from the same place. If I could do it, they could do it. And that's one thing that Dolph always taught us. At the end of the day, nobody's better than anybody. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. It's all up to you how you're going to impact others' lives.
Let's find out more about Young Dolph and the case from our panel. Joining me for this conversation, Brick Wolfpack. He's a hip-hop artist with Wolfpack Entertainment and Paper Route Empire. That was Dolph's record label. Brick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
We really appreciate it. Also with us is Chuck Creekmore. He's the co-founder and CEO of allhiphop.com, and he interviewed Young Dolph about 2 months before he passed. Chuck, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. Also joining us is Dr. Darren Porcher. He's a former NYPD lieutenant and a law enforcement commentator. Darren, thank you so much for being with us.
As always, a pleasure, Lisa. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate it. Chuck, I want to start with you on this because the hip-hop world knew Young Dolph very, very well, but give us a sense for our general audience too. Where was he at in his life and his career?
You know, from my conversation with him, Dolph was ready to take over. You know, we had a pretty good conversation, and he was definitely eyeing the old dynasties like Cash Money, No Limit, Death Row, and he was looking to create that feeling in hip hop again. And I really appreciated the fact that he strove to be a billionaire, but more importantly, he said he wanted to create millionaires in his team and his squad. And I found that amazing to me. You know, so when he passed, a lot of people were calling him the down south Nipsey. And I think that sort of oversimplifies it, but it does give you an idea of how well he was respected and how well people loved him and really generally what they thought of him. So he had numerous business pursuits. As you can see, he died supporting a Black-owned business, and he really looked out for his team. He wasn't an industry dude at all. So you never saw him schmoozing up with industry people or at different events. He was his own man, and he was really from the community that he unfortunately died in.
And for the community, Brick, first of all, my condolences to you because you work closely with him. You were a close friend of his. And this was such a tragedy, especially the time that it came at. Tell us how you're feeling now, first of all.
I mean, we're forever going to be heartbroken. It's one of them things, they took a brother from us, a father, a role model. So at the end of the day, his legacy is forever going to live on. But, at this moment, of course, we're still grieving. The family's still grieving. The holidays weren't the same. Thanksgiving wasn't the same. It's something that we're forever going to heal, slowly from. But, we still got to remember to just keep his legacy alive and keep pushing for him, stay motivated and have that hungerness that he would want us to have right now, because he would want us to be smiling. If anything, that was the type of person he was, through bad or good. He always told us, just smile, bro. Just stay motivated, stay hungry.
What kind of an effect did he have on your life, on how he changed your life, and maybe how you looked at, what you wanted to do and are doing?
Everything, everything that I was doing, it was one of them things where he really believed in us, and it took somebody like him to see the vision, what we were trying to put together and do it, so it's it's of course, words couldn't explain how much we miss him, and the things that he would do for the people, not only just me, because I couldn't just say, it was a main focus, but the main thing, like bro was just saying, like he wanted everybody to be on, everybody to be their own boss, the whole team. So it's like he changed my life overnight. It was one of them things where I'm just, a Mexican coming from the slums, from the streets, didn't have nothing, and I lost my father and stuff like that too, from gun violence and in the streets and things of that nature. So it's like, seeing it happen, until it happens, you will never believe. So it's like, I just want to make sure that everybody gives people their roses and their flowers, no matter what it is they're doing right now in life while they're here, because you don't know how much you appreciate them until they're gone.
And how much is there? Darren, in terms of the investigation, we've done many Street Soldiers episodes where we talked about how long it's taken for anybody to be held responsible because of the code of silence on the streets. This case was solved in apparently solved, because they still have to have their day in court. But this was apparently solved, a very fast arrest within less than 2 months, hundreds and hundreds of tips, a lot of them obviously really real, down to like where these guys were, what highway they were driving on, what town they were near. What do you think of the investigation?
I thought that this was a quintessential investigation, because we clearly see how the pendulum is shifting in one direction to the other, whereas the seismic shift in connection with the death of a hip hop artist is very different than when we reflect on people like the death of Tupac Shakur, the death of the Notorious Big. Law enforcement didn't have or garner enough tips to allow them to move in the direction of taking these people into custody. But here, what's so interesting and significant about this particular case, one of the suspects in particular crossed numerous state lines, and police, meaning the U.S. Marshals, were able to take him into custody because there was a reward that was introduced to the public and many people attached to it. So I'm hopeful that this can be the new trajectory in connection with the death of hip hop artists and the public engaging in that symbiotic relationship to ensure the tips go to law enforcement to capture these people that committed this horrific act. And I'm thankful that it happened in this specific instance.
Stay with us. There's much more to come. Give us a sense of, do you live mainly in Memphis? Like, were you there in Memphis for a lot of the time with him, or give us a sense of that?
It's actually crazy because a lot of people think I'm from Memphis, but I was actually born and raised in Houston, Texas. So what makes it so different is that I would come out there a lot, to Cast Stallion, and see the effect that he had on other people's lives. And man, they embraced him with open arms. They loved him, because a lot of people don't know originally, Dolph is from Chicago.
Right.
And then he moved out to Memphis. So it was one of them things, what he did for the community. So you could feel it definitely when we were out there. It was just, man, they would roll out the red carpet every time we were there. We stood out like a needle in a haystack, because it was like Dolph was the only one out there riding, Lamborghinis and Corvettes. All of them wrapped camouflage. So it wasn't hard to spot him. He was one of the ones that, he was smart, but he was real loud. It was like, his jewelry, the way he carried himself, the way he treated other people, man, it was major out there in Memphis. They loved him just like every other city and state. I mean, we done been everywhere across the world, and it's been the same way. They embrace us with open arms.
Chuck, let me ask you, you interviewed him just 2 months before he died, and you've interviewed many of the top hip hop artists in the culture for years. Give us a sense of, what you thought and what you felt about Young Dolph as you were talking with him? What struck you that was unusual?
I just think that he had a lot of dreams, a lot of plans for himself, his crew, his family. And it was, I won't say uncharacteristically confident that this was going to happen. Anytime somebody says a billionaire, you kind of start doing math and you start wondering, how do you plan to get there?
Right.
And he had so many different interests business wise. He was unusually grounded, really like just truly grounded in his life's work. I didn't get the impression that he was thirsty or he's not doing things for the gram or he's not doing, what a lot of rappers do to get attention.
Right.
That's fact.
Yeah, he was really like a regular guy that just had just big dreams, big aspirations.
Darren, let me come back. Let me come back to the investigation here, because this was, when you look at the root, we talk about roots. They went from allegedly the two suspects from Memphis. They were all over the South. They were in Atlanta. They ended up being captured by the U.S. Marshals on a tip that they were on a road going to Terre Haute, Indiana, which is not too far from Chicago. But what kind of coordination is happening behind the scenes to put those tips together so that they can act on them, and the law enforcement can act on them in real time?
One of the greatest assets for law enforcement is the police and community relationship. Much of what's done in law enforcement is a byproduct of tips that are supplied by the public. So when you have people, when you constantly plaster an image of an individual that potentially committed an act or violent crime, such as what happened to Young Dolph, it enables the public to view through a lens of, okay, this is possibly the guy. And so when you coordinate these tips to law enforcement, more so specific to the U.S. Marshals in this particular case, you have to do some data mining. When I say data mining, a lot of tips come in and you need to triage and make the assessment as this is good and this is not. It takes hundreds of hours to do that. More so specific to when you have people from multi-states that are calling in with this information.
Like they were all over the place in 2 months. Like they were on the run constantly, according to what the police said. Rick, in terms, what do you think about that? Just like what happened and the way it happened?
Honestly, it's just unjustifiable. I mean, at the end of the day, even though I know they have somebody in custody, it's like there's no type of punishment that could be withheld as far as these young men go, because as far as I'm hearing, they're kids. They're not even over 25 years old, and I still consider that being a kid and not knowing how to move or how many lives that we're going to affect in the future. It's just it's just sad to see stuff like that happen. But when it happens, and I've seen it, it was just one of them moments where it's a feeling that you can't explain, like where your stomach just drops and you're just like, I can't believe it. This has to be fake news, because you know how social media is. Everything hits social, everything's on social media before it even hits, breaking news or the news. So it's like, is this something I could believe or what's going on? But it's like, everybody's calling everybody at the moment of the time when it happened, right then and there. So, and this is broad daylight. This is somebody,
exactly.
This didn't happen like a mistake, or no, this wasn't no robbery. This was, they gunned him down in broad daylight. And this is what people need to understand. Like, the streets need to come together, and, there would be no motive behind it if you think about it at the end of the day, because it was never on social media. Dolph wasn't the type of person to involve himself with stuff like that. He would kind of step back and be more of the peacemaker when it comes to things like that. So, it kind of, took the whole team by force. Of course, all of us were, highly ecstatic and surprised, because it's like wow, that's our brother, so it's like nothing, words couldn't explain it. how we felt and how it happened. It's incredible, it happened so fast, and it's still to this day I wake up and I look at my phone, man, I wonder if Dolph's gonna come, and then I remember and I come out and I look at this picture I have, old pictures and stuff that I have with him, and I just think like, how would it be right now, and how would the world, embrace him and talk about him right now to this day of what if he was still here. So it's just it's crazy because at the end of the day, it's like this could happen to anybody. It just didn't happen to Young Dolph because it was Young Dolph. This happens every day
Right.
in your neighborhood and my neighborhood, all across the world.
Chuck, in terms of this everything that's happening, you're seeing it musically. You're also seeing it as a news person and being in the hip hop culture. What do you think we can learn from this, or can we learn something from this?
Well, I think we can learn a lot. I think first of all, I think we have to. A lot of us need to go and listen to Dolph's music. Really go and digest his music and listen to what he was about. That's number one. I think also listening to his own words, his interviews. I did that, and they take on new meaning when you listen to him in hindsight and thinking what could have been, but also what can we take from it and move forward with. Same thing with Nipsey Hussle. Those guys are
Right.
still motivational speakers to me. When I interviewed Dolph, I made sure I interviewed Dolph because it's a two-way street. We're receiving information as well, and I don't talk to just anybody these days. I talk to pretty much who I want to talk to, not everybody. So when I opted to do that interview myself rather than assign it to someone, that was intentional. That means I'm going to get something out of this in addition to helping promote a project or whatever the case may be.
Darren, in terms of the lessons learned from law enforcement, I mean, there's a lot of people that have had very negative experiences with the police. They still don't like them, but when they see them doing a job like this, as appears to be on the case and getting people that were responsible, which again they'll have their day in court to prove their to be proven guilty, but the or innocent. The What do you think this shows or does to law enforcement? Does this do anything?
I believe the evolution of gun violence has plagued the minority communities for years on end. It's been a pandemic prior to us experiencing COVID. The evolution of gun violence has removed resources from our communities, whether it's people from the socioeconomic, economically impoverished zone, or people that are high up at the pendulum, such as the death of Young Dolph. We saw it happen when Nipsey passed. We saw it happen when Pop Smoke passed. These are all three people that were killed were at the top of their game. We need to have that police and community relationship that continues to eradicate gun violence. If it doesn't, this is going to continue to manifest, and we're not going to have an answer in sight. So the preface or the foundation is that communication between police and community to eradicate guns from our society. I don't believe that this is going to change. However, the trajectory is going in a different direction, whereas we saw in this particular case that information exchange between cops and civilians has led to the arrest of two suspects. Hopefully, this is something that will continue.
Rick, I want to give you the last word. What do you think it'll take to stop the gun violence in our communities, this type of just gun violence?
I think just more influencers, everybody just be more. I couldn't just say, just be more like Dolph. Just everybody needs to just be motivated, be more of a role model at the end of the day. Use your social media platforms and the way that you talk to other people, as an influence to influence them to do something positive, and I think it'll kind of help because, a lot of people look up to people like us, Young Dolph, everybody.
Right.
And what we do, that's what encourages them to do. So we're doing something great, it'll encourage them to do something great. So it goes back to us, going back to our neighborhoods and giving back. But I encourage everybody, of course, to be safe because, of course, there's always going to be people out there with loose screws. But you never know what anybody has going through their mind. We couldn't change that. All we could do is encourage that person to uplift them, to do something positive, and pray and hope, that there's going to be change.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers on Justice for Young Dolph. You can share it and watch it again on our Fox 5 NY YouTube page. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace, love, and justice for all.